Friends, comrades, yeah, so on Sunday, this Sunday, October 22nd at 7 p.m. at the Moroccan Lounge in Los Angeles, I'm going to be debating Siaka Massaquoi, so doors at 6:30, debate at 7, ticket link below the square where you're watching me right now, and in any case, I thought I would spend a couple hours watching some of Siaka's content to help get ready for the debate. And what the hell? Might as well do that on YouTube, which is maybe maybe a bit more streamerish than what I would usually do, but seemed like something people might enjoy. So what the hell? Vibe Train, you can go to a different Rams game. You should definitely come to this. So in any case, I am just going to start pulling up some of his stuff and watching it and breaking it down a bit. So if you are, if you're not familiar, I've talked about a little bit on the show before, but Siaka is the vice chair of the Los Angeles County Republican Party. And he's also a contributor to Prager University. And he regularly contributes to Babylon Bee. He's a self-described Christian conservative. So should be lots to argue about on Sunday. The format is going to be opening statements from the two of us, 5 minutes each, responses same length, half an hour of open back and forth between us and the moderator, and then half an hour of audience Q&A, and then 5-minute close-ins. Hold on, what's this? So Skelumph says in the chat, believe that might be the gentleman otherwise known as Skeletor. Did you see that Zizek got heckled by an anti-Semitism official during his speech at the opening of the Frankfurt Book Fair? I did not see that. That is disturbing, but I have to say not particularly shocking in the current atmosphere. I will definitely take a look at. I'll definitely take a look at that. Sorry, I was laughing because I saw Yano saying you're going about this all wrong. Don't prepare by familiarizing yourself with his arguments. Simply assert your alpha dominance by claiming all his credentials and professional titles. Yes, if in my judgment I've won the debate, I will announce that I am now the vice chair of the Los Angeles County GOP, which is going to be quite a shock to them. No comment on that. Five Trade says there'll be a lot of Burbank residents there on his side. Speaking of Slavoj, I actually just got his new book in the mail today, Freedom, a Disease Without Cure, which I'm really looking forward to reading. I'll probably write about on the Philosophy Substack, Philosophy for the People, as I get some of it read. This Sunday's thing for Philosophy for the People, by the way, is going to be about Peter Singer and his asinine comments about Palestine and what I think that says about the perils of even being a philosopher as smart as Peter Singer is and trying to comment on current events with nothing more than some moral intuitions and a superficial grasp of whatever you read in today's newspaper. Okay, I am going to start pulling up some of Siaka's stuff. This is the website from when he was a Republican candidate for state assembly in California, and he has. And so there's this appearances page here. So I think this is the. So this is the PragerU one. So we're gonna start with this, although I have to end this screen share and start the other one here. So okay, yep, this is his Prager U one. So let's start there. This is Stories of Us, Siaka Massaquoi.
If Hollywood's trying to sell about black people, the same thing the media's been selling, that we're poor us, our lives are in danger every day just by living here in this country. They see me as a black man and they automatically go to victimhood or criminal. Hi, my name's Siaka Massaquoi. This is my story. I'm an actor, been here in LA for about 16 years now. My parents are Liberian, so I'm first generation American, and I was born in Rochester, New York. I grew up with my mom and my younger brother. I grew up extremely liberal. I think I grew up in a time when it was progressive before the phrase was popular. I was also told people in the South are super racist and they'll hang you. Be careful. I was also told do not go into rural areas because then no one will find you and then you'll be lynched. Be careful. This is what I was told in the 90s about the other side and about this country. Cops will always act a certain way towards you. Be careful. I took this one class called Black Action Theater. I found that when I started doing the work in that class, it was the only thing that I ever did where I enjoyed the process just as much as the final product. When I got into this class and he had us writing scripts and he had us handing out our scripts and then other people perform it and then you get a script at the moment and I'm like, well, how quickly can I get into this character? Like I just really found a passion for the process of it. It was an opportunity not only just to tell stories, but to tell stories at a big level, where it's going to reach and touch a lot of different people. That's what it was to me. And it was a chance to all these different fantasies I had in my head about being the hero that can fly or the guy who's saving the princess with the sword, fighting the dragon, all those things that I would read. I'm like, Hollywood offers that. When you're a non-union actor, I felt like, well, once I get into the union, then it's real. And I worked my butt off to try to do that in these different kind of hustle ways. And I finally got in. I realized when I was in, it's like, that's only just a taste of what it is. You need to put in the work, go to classes, all this stuff that I didn't understand. I don't think it was hard because I was black. I think it was hard because I didn't play these certain characters. It didn't fit my energy. Hollywood is probably the most racist place that I've ever experienced. Early agents that I would have was, oh, you ever think about being a bad guy? You should hip hop it up more. What am I slowly losing in my heart every time I go in for these parts, every time I cater to how they want me to be in this, what I find very bigoted approach. You have people like Jordan Peele saying, I'm not interested in telling white stories. I don't know what that means. You have Seth Rogen saying, I'm not going to hire white people anymore. All these people that made their money already. All these people that did in that same system that they're screaming is super racist and super turned off. Now they're doing the exact same thing and stating it. They will say some of the most disgusting things around me. And I know they're only comfortable because I'm a black guy. I know it. I don't think it's funny that you say, I don't like to hang out with white people and laugh. I don't think that's funny. That's terrible. It's okay you don't hire that guy because he's a tall white guy. It's okay that you do hire that guy because he's a black guy. That is racist. Plain and simple. That is racist. Why would I want to be a part of that? That's the thing that really started to upset me. Do I see a white man coming towards me and be like, he's racist? And here we go. Because that's the ideology I was raised in. Old white men initially, you're racist. So I saw color, but I saw it from an evil standpoint and from a gross standpoint. And then I find out that wasn't true. That's the only thing that had pushed me away from the left was actually then going out and finding out for myself and not just trusting a book that was told to me or the TV show that told me how to think. You have these young black boys and black girls looking for an answer. And you got Oprah telling them, oh yeah, it's white privilege. What country in the 80s would allow a fat black woman to have a daytime talk show that now she is one of the richest people on the planet? That was here in America. I feel like.
All right. Some initial thoughts about this I concur with the premise that annoying Hollywood liberals are annoying, but this seems like a strange objection to something called the left in general. And it's also pretty telling that what he's calling the left is represented by Oprah, famous Marxist theoretician Oprah Winfrey. But yeah, it's that this is on the one hand, look, I think this is all pretty vapid as far as an objection even to disparitarian liberalism, right? That sort of liberalism that says that the thing that's the most important kind of injustice that exists is disparity in distribution of resources between people who exist of different races, and just kind of pointing out individual examples of very successful Black people, or of annoying Hollywood liberals overcompensating and saying dumb shit about white people, obviously doesn't do anything to touch that. And it's certainly completely irrelevant to any sort of left perspective that isn't just liberal disparitarianism, that says, no, what matters isn't how poverty is distributed. It's that there is poverty at all, that there is, large scale economic inequality at all. So, that would be my first thought about this, but let's keep going.
I feel like the narrative Hollywood's trying to sell about Black people is the same thing the media's been selling, that poor us, our lives are in danger every day just by living here in this country. They see me as a Black man and they automatically go to victimhood or criminal. So that's how they start to control the culture, because then that's all you see is your representation. Then you have social media doubling down on it. Then you have the news doubling down on it. So you give them the entertainment so they can relate from it from an emotional standpoint. Then you do it in social media and news media, where you give them like, look at the real life stuff. It's happening here. We're going to censor out when it happens to anyone else and only show you this thing. So now it connects with that movie you watched, right? Nothing's changed since the civil rights movement. Man, that's not the truth. All my problems were me. They weren't because anyone else out there who didn't look like me was setting me up to fail. There's so much fear in this industry. And if anyone is on the right, that's it, you're done. Doesn't matter if you're Black or white. Doesn't matter if you're a woman. Doesn't matter if you're gay. I have been removed from this and from a couple projects, and I've seen friends be removed from projects. So people keep their mouth shut. For me, the fear was there too, but to keep my mouth shut so I can maybe get a job saying 3 or 4 lines on a co-star, like, it doesn't add up anymore. I would say, if there be a call to action for anyone in Hollywood, anyone who may be watching this, it's ask yourself what really matters in your heart. We have a chance to be different. And if you don't, you're going to have to live with that for the rest of your life. You have a chance today. Let's go. Let's do it. Let's try. And your strength will again give strength to others. There's other people there that you will find. I guarantee it. And the sacrifice isn't as bad as you think.
So I do just want to point out here, in terms of just kind of the case for talking to these people and pushing back against some of these ideas, as much as you who are watching it might roll your eyes at that. The reason I've kept the minimized video here is that I just want to point this out, that this 2.9 million views, right? So that's 2.9 million people watched this video, because PragerU has a unfathomably massive reach, right? Like, you think about all the people you think are a big deal, right? Who make the who make like content in left media, your Sam Cedars, your Anna and Jenks, people like that. All of those people put together, that like their most you look at like the most successful videos any of them have done in the last year and put them all together. It's going to be nothing compared to this random PragerU video with its 2.9 million views, right? So this is, you can kind of pretend that these people don't exist and say, oh, well, I'm not going to, sully myself by talking to them. But as you're saying that, literally millions of people are paying attention to them. So I think anytime you can reach, obviously it's only going to be a fraction of those people, but anytime you can reach at least some of those people and push back against the ideas, you're much better off. This is pretending that they don't exist. And, it's like, I'm not going to give them the magical aura of my, legitimizing them by talking to them is very much like closing the barn door after all the animals have run out. Brent says, oh, yeah. So off topic, but worth addressing. Hi, Ben, not sure if it's worth your effort. You have any interest commenting on Sam Harris's moral take in the Gaza issue? Personally, jettison Harris back when he tried to one-up Chomsky's morals. Yeah, I remember that Harris-Chomsky exchange. I didn't read it at the time, but I read it when I was working with Michael Brooks on Against the Web. And that was like, background reading, that we were talking about and incorporating into his Harris chapter. And yeah, that's a really amazing exchange. Just the way that, just the obviously from my perspective, Chomsky wipes the floor with Sam Harris, which is exactly what you would expect to happen. But then, to me, the funniest part is the end where Harris says, hey, is it okay with you if I reprint, these emails on my blog? And Chomsky basically said, well, that seems like an incredibly strange thing to do, but whatever, dude, I'm not going to stop you. And, I don't think Harris really gets why he should have thought better of that. But yeah, I saw that, Harris has, he has a blog post, and I think it might even be a transcript of something he originally did on his podcast from years and years ago called Why I Don't Criticize Israel. And I saw that earlier this week he had something that was looked like kind of a version of that was written specifically about this new war. And I've certainly read the original, which I thought was beyond asinine. And I don't expect anything better from this, but yeah, no, I can't resist taking a shot at Sam Harris. I might very well write something about this. Like I mentioned a minute ago, the Substack this weekend is going to be on Peter Singer's, not as asinine as Harris, I think, but still pretty asinine comments on the Gaza war. So yeah, I mean, my head is definitely in that space. So it's definitely not impossible, that I'd write something about Harris, what Harris has said about this going forward. Yeah. Skellumph says, unfortunately, we Germans are losing our minds on that topic. A while ago, they called Greta Thunberg an anti-Semite for, quote, retweeting known BDS supporter Naomi Klein, which is hilarious in many ways. Because I think there was actually kind of a lunatic fringe of people on our side who were mad at Klein for some of her initial comments on the Hamas attacks, even though I think she's been, very good on condemning the Israeli response. But yeah, no, the German left is unfortunately pretty out to lunch on this, with a few honorable exceptions. And it always seems really strange how many even German leftists never seem to wonder why it is that there aren't leftists in any other country besides Israel itself who are on the same page as with them about this. It's oh, maybe we're the ones who are missing something important. Okay, let us go back to Siaka. So let's see. Let's do. Got a lot to choose from here in terms of his previous appearances. Let me just see. Let's look at this one. Yep. This is kind of a yeah, this is kind of a smorgasbord of standard right wing takes. Just see. Yeah. Let's see. Yep. Nope. Think that's not going to do that one. Let's see. How about here's a short one. Gonna do this next, I think. So share. Oh my God! Yes, I saw that. The Social Democratic Party in Germany. I don't think they were actually disinviting Bernie from anything, but like the head of the SPD was initially going to go to a Bernie event that Bernie was doing in Germany, and then made a big show of how she wasn't going to go, basically because Bernie condemned, Israel killing a bunch of innocent civilians in Gaza, which is like particularly grotesque. I mean, the funniest comment about it in a very dark way was Matt Brunig saying it continued Germany's history of disrespecting the Sanders family. But yeah, I mean, it's it's so obviously ridiculous. It's incredible, right? Yeah, and Antonio, with regard to the other comment, right? Like, look, it's not, yes, I agree. Nobody's going to give you any points for calling out the dumb shit that some leftists say. I think the reason to do it is to try to build a smarter left. But in any case, all right, I was going to screen share this next short one here. All right, so this is more race stuff. He's speaking at a school board. I think I can guess where this is going to go, but it would be slightly interesting to see him in this context and not just one where he could talk about his experience with annoying Hollywood liberals.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Siaka Massaquoi. I am a son of a first generation. I'm first generation American. My mom is from West Africa, Liberia, that up until maybe 8 years ago was in a 20-year civil war. And the biggest reason I am here is to talk about the person that presented what I will just call CRT. You can call it the African American PAC or PAC or whatever you want. I am an example, and I grew up in a very inclusive and equitable space in Evanston, Illinois, right where Northwestern is. And I was taught about all this. I was raised with all this. The world's against me. It was old white person's fault. That's what I was raised with. I went through my struggles in my 20s, in and out of jail, because my dad wasn't around, because I was believing the world was against me, not doing the work that I needed to do. And when you sit there and you decide to judge and grade kids with this skin color differently, my family members that made it out of a war zone because they had education would not be here. And we talk about all the war zones where you talk about Chicago or down in Compton where those kids are getting shot, and you want to introduce that same distraction to them now. I didn't learn about credit or how to even balance my checkbook till I was 32, and I'm 42. Think about that. That's what's going on out there. If you guys want to talk about, oh, you're different, you're born different with a skin color, so you learn different. We're going to lower the educational standard. Thank God my mom, thank God she has her master's in nursing, and thank God her dad taught her education was important, because the school tried to put me in a special ed class because, as the black teacher told her, all my friends were there.
Thank God she said no, because she was allowed to be a parent. Go figure. Stop distracting. We're struggling out here because of financial illiteracy. That's what we're out here struggling, of all groups, even if you're going LGBT. And you know what? If they're not going to listen to you, parents, pull them out of the school.
Much.
That's where the money's at.
Thank you.
Yep, that's pretty straightforward. Anti-identity politics right there. I will note that nobody in my largely white school district, long before the CRT panic, was taught how to balance a checkbook in school either. I don't know when that's been a standard part of the curriculum. Yeah, let's watch something that's let's watch something that's like a little bit longer. We might not watch the whole thing, but let's check out at least one part of one of the longer appearances here. This is here we go.
Hey guys, welcome to the Self-Evident Podcast. You got your boy Mike here with you. It is a great day. Unfortunately, our man Massey is not going to be here with us today, but that's all right. I am captaining, driving, sailing, piloting the ship. All right, and that's been our show. Thank you so much for joining us. Cut the feed, please get us out of here. All right, so guys, welcome. Do not forget to go to the self-evidenttruth.com. Make sure to pick up your merch, get your stuff, bring them in. How are you doing today, man? Oh, I don't have audio. Hold on.
This is nice to know it's not just leftists.
Sign out and sign back in real quick. I think something clipped off for a reason. Until we get him back in.
They would love hearing us about 20 minutes ago. I'm going to go in and come right back out again. I don't know what's going on. Let's see here.
All righty. Yep. Let's see.
In the front room, too. So everyone got removed from the house. There were about 13 to 15, 8, all armed. There are so many people that, guys. Let's see here. Hello. Can you hear me? You can hear me, but I can't hear you.
Skellov says the title is unequivocally true. It is self-evidently a podcast.
We promised it was working fine right before we came on, guys.
I can't even. How come I can't? I can't even make fun of this.
There. Can you hear us?
There it is. Yes.
Too much pain.
All right.
There
before we lose you again.
Yeah. Oh man, that was weird. It's like I heard everything until you brought me on. It was like, nope. Everything was clean, but I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. If you don't mind, I got to ask this. I had said in the email, I didn't get a no, let's not talk about that. So,
oh, yeah, no, we talk about it.
FBI raid?
Yes, sir.
You tell, especially, current events. Can you tell me a little about that whole scenario?
Well, it was, and like you said earlier, just to start, I did nothing wrong on January 6th, nothing violent, I should say. Wrong is, I would say, there are so many people that just walking on the grounds, it was automatically, you trespass.
Right.
So technically everyone that stepped on the grounds, on the grass, one blade of grass there, you were automatically trespassing. So from that standpoint, yes. But there were no violence, no argument with police or anything like that. Just reporting for the most part, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, in the morning of June 10th, about 5:45, 6 a.m., my room is at the end of the house on the other side, towards the backyard. So I'm waking up to hearing FBI screaming and yelling in my house. I open my door, and as soon as I open my door, 2 FBI agents down the hall are just like, hands in the air, lights on you, everything. Come to find out, I get cuffed, I get taken outside. I don't see anyone I recognize at the time, and the only one I do see is my godson, who was 4, being held in the arms of some lady going into a car. Living with me at the time, my best friend, my 2 godsons, who was 4 and 7. And then a couple that lived in the front room too. So everyone got removed from the house. There were about 13 to 15 agents, all armed, as if I was a drug runner or trafficking women and kids.
Just want to, probably going to skip past this in a minute because I'm way more interested in getting into his political opinions than in this story. But I always wonder about this stuff, right? It's like, look, I'll take him at his word. He was at the protest. He didn't do anything violent. But if so, right, then are there any broader conclusions about maybe policing in the United States that you can draw from overkill here, or is it only when it happens to right-wing protesters that's bad, right? I mean, I guess that's a pretty obvious point, but it is definitely the first thing that pops into my head here. But in any case, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Know about.
Right, they know about them, but they just don't.
Nothing. And that's the thing that's wild, is where they wanted most people just to use everything digital because they have technology. What I find funny about that actually is the ones who are saying that the most, well, it must be some there, are the ones who I grew up around saying the government hates people like look like me and don't trust them.
Right.
But when I get hit, all those same people, a lot of them, it can be family and friends I grew up with. I didn't hear anything.
Right.
As far as I know, my skin, regardless on what Joe said, my skin is still this. Now the government, literally, the police arm of the government comes into my home, and
yeah, I mean, this is just the this is just the opposite point. But again, let's say he's right that this is inconsistent. I mean, doesn't the inconsistency also run in the other direction, right? Like, how is it that conservatives who are hot and bothered about this, again, don't draw any further conclusions about law enforcement in America? Because other than that, everything's that story that we've already heard a couple times now from the first 2 videos about how he was told that the system was against him, but it's really not, and blah blah blah. So anyway, whatever. I'm gonna skip ahead to see if we can get to the next subject here.
apparently is that too. So
absolutely
anything to make the people self-sufficient and prosper tends to be a problem that's bigger, too big to solve. Two, we're most consumed. Our population consumes the most entertainment in many ways.
Much manifest destiny, self-sufficient, master of yourself. But we can wedge in on that whole race issue and create it.
Well, it's a great point. So what happens is, and this is actually a CIA tactic because they use Marxist tactic to do this, but it doesn't matter if it's the U.S. or it's France.
All right. Kat walked by the keyboard there a second. I'm obviously doing this from home. But I just heard Marxist tactics, so my ears are perking up.
Or it's, Liberia, West Africa. What they do is they find whatever the underlying issues that kind of can permeate in the culture of that place, then they go in there. That usually is like maybe like we talked about. We'll just say straight up slavery. It's not a thing that exists anymore. Racism here is such a marketing tool. It does live underneath the surface of America, partly because our country is so popular and it's so young. You know, like they don't sit there and talk to England about all the colonialism that they've done and the slaves they had. They don't talk about England in that same way, but they use the guilt of it in the same way they use here. So what they do is they take a little issue, whatever the little issue is. It could be left tires back in Indonesia. They're like, left tires. Can you believe these right tires were getting away with the left tires? So they take whatever it is. Then now we've hit a point too. We're most consumed. Our population consumes the most entertainment than anywhere else. So it's not just a newspaper that a few people who can read can get to. You have it blasted out in such a methodical way to everywhere. They can repeat it over and over and bang it in people's faces and people's heads. It's a smaller issue, and then now let's spread across everything else. Race, smaller issue. Men and women issues, how they present it, small issues. Trans issues are small issues when it comes down to it. Whether it's LGBT, those are smaller issues in the grand scheme of what's going. Even the Black Lives Matter movement. What kills more Black people? 80% of other Black people kill more Black people. But what do they focus on? When one kills a Black person, that's like one of 9 that was killed like 2 to 3 years ago. So look how small that issue is comparatively to what's big. They always go after the small, minute issues that may live in the back of the skin. Like, I got that shoulder issue. Yeah, that shoulder issue is why you can't play basketball or do anything anymore. No, I can. No, I'm gonna tell you why. And so they take all these the smallest issue and they make it the biggest. And in making it big, it's easier to kind of make it kind of this grandiose problem that's bigger, too big to solve. Right. If we talk about 80% of Black folks killing each other, we can just look at 80% and go, we need to get that number down. If we talk about systemic racism in the history in this country, that's why it's 80%. Now we just kind of don't know where we can start. It almost sits at the behest of those that first told you what the issue is, when and how it actually will get better.
All right, lot to unpack that. So I think if I was following all of that, the Marxist tactic is to try to inflate relatively small issues and treat them as big issues and ignore bigger issues in order to convince people that they can't get ahead. I think that's what I heard. I also heard something about Americans consuming more streaming services or something, which I don't really understand what the point of that is. I mean, that might be a version, if I was catching it correctly, of the sort of like, oh, you're not really that badly off. Really, it's that the, like this is the kind of thing that conservatives will say. That's like, oh, our poor people are really rich by, global standards, which is, true maybe if the standards, are closer to true, right? If the standards that you're talking about are like extreme third world poverty, but it's the opposite of true, of course, if your standard is other rich industrialized nations. I just happened to be reading something earlier today, actually by Singer, because I'm writing this thing about him. And here he is making a good point, where he says, and I quote, and granted, this is from many years back, right? This is a book from 2003, so I suppose it's possible it's gotten better, although that would not be my prediction. He writes, quote, although America is one of the world's richest nations, the proportion of the adult population living in relative poverty is more than twice as high in the United States as it is in France, Germany, or Italy, 19% as against about 8%. American solo children do even worse. Fully 1/4 of them live in poverty, compared with about 1/10 or less of the major nations of continental Western Europe. Nor is this only because the wealthy United States is a higher benchmark below which people count as poor. On the contrary, those in the poorest 10% of the American population are worse off in absolute terms than those in the poorest tenth of the populations of Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. Again, that was Austria, Belgium, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. A Swedish family with children that is at the threshold of that poorest 10% will have an income that is 60% higher than a similar family at the threshold of the poorest 10% of Americans. The Swedish family will also have the security of a safety net of income support and free healthcare services that far surpasses anything available to the poor in America. Skipping ahead a couple lines, he notes, not coincidentally, Americans have the lowest life expectancy at birth of any major industrialized nation, being expected to live lives that are nearly 3 years shorter than those of Swedes, 2 years shorter than Canadians, and shorter too than those of the Japanese, Germans, French, British, Dutch, and Italians. Matched against the European table, American life expectancy would fall somewhere between Greece and Portugal. So, you know, if if the question is, you know, how should we weigh Americans consuming a lot of streaming services over a much more severe child poverty problem and a noticeably lower life expectancy than other rich industrialized nations? You know, I know what my answer would be, but then again, maybe I've been swayed by these Marxist tactics that Siaka is talking about. You know, but like more beyond that, right? Of course, he goes into, he says something about men and women in there, although I don't think that was really a complete thought. Mostly he's back to the race stuff. And on that, you know, he sort of says, well, the, you know, number, basically, you know, it's like a racialized version of this, but the basic point is that people killed in street crime, that's like a much higher number than people who are killed by like police misconduct. And of course that's true, but both of those are downstream of the same thing, which is poverty, right? Because anybody with eyes can see that by and large, you know, that street crime, you know, is not much of a problem for people of any race or culture who live in upper middle class neighborhoods. And you know, that again, all those other nations I just listed off, you know, have vastly lower violent crime rates, etc. And, you know, police misconduct, which, you know, I've never understood this idea that like, well, if the actual numbers are relatively low, therefore no big deal, right? It's like, okay, if the mayor of the city goes out and like shoots one resident, you know, once every 6 weeks, if it's a big city, that's probably a very small part of the overall murder rate, but it's still, you know, it's still a situation that you know, that the mayor is doing it. I think similar points apply for anybody who's killed by public officials and then not brought to justice afterwards, like an ordinary citizen would be. But beyond that, right, like, look, sure, yes, you know, whether we, you know, talk about racially specific statistics or statistics for everybody, street crime kills more people than police misconduct. But again, both of these things are downstream of poverty. That the kind of aggressive militarized policing that people is certainly racially disproportionate in the United States, given America's history and the, you know, historical distribution of poverty that, you know, comes out of Jim Crow and all that stuff. That kind of aggressive militarized policing is a way of managing the social ills that come out of poverty. Again, regardless of race or culture, if you live in an upper middle class neighborhood, you almost certainly have a great relationship with the police. That's something I was talking to Waz about last time I was on Woke Bros. Also, I guess final thought before I go back to this, what this Marxist tactic has to do with Marxism is completely beyond me. I would think that the Marxist tactic would be reminding people that the thing that's most important is class, and that this, you know, then that the solution is having a more economically equal society by taking away power and resources from the owners of big capital, because that would actually have something to do with Marxism. I mean, this is just sort of the usual right-wing thing where Marxism is a word that means anything that we don't like and find scary.
So it's nothing you can quantify yourself, because there's no quantification for how good or bad it really is.
Absolutely.
80% is a number we can look at and go, 80%, let's fix that. No, talking points. White people only say that. You're like,
statistics are only used when they need to be, right?
Yes. And they're technically signs of white supremacy, according to the National African American Museum that put out in 2020.
Yeah, this really is. I know I just paused, so I'm gonna resume in just a second here, but like it really is amazing how much of a gift the Ibram X. Kendi style idiots are to the right wing. That like all of the sort of cringy race stuff from liberals is obviously the foil that the Siakas of the world want to define themselves against. And that's a much easier argument for them than arguing with people who actually want to talk about poverty and economic inequality and sort of leave out the nonsensical parts of that kind of liberalism.
That's true, right? And we've done that. Math is white supremacy. Science is white supremacy.
But individuality is white supremacy.
White supremacy.
Family unit is white supremacy. Loving God apparently is that too. So
absolutely
anything to make the people self-sufficient and prosper tends to happen to be white supremacy now. It's really interesting how that works. It's almost kind of like one side. There is systemic racism coming from one side, wanting to keep us dumb and I don't know. Look at policies.
Go figure.
Yes, $1 million, huh?
No, I want to get a bit deeper into all this, taking a side road. But your experience in Hollywood, taking in all we've already talked about, you were in Hollywood, right, for over 15 years. I'm really curious about this. Make it real for people, because people they know what Hollywood is producing. They've heard Hollywood is like, but you were on the inside of the whole thing, which when I think about it, it's like, okay, this is a work environment. This is an area. Your office is set every day. Your coworkers are people who are doing different jobs on set. But kind of dive into this a little bit. Give people that inside track of like, what is it like working in Hollywood for years, and what did you witness, especially with the umbrella of what we've been talking about?
Well, so it's in stages, right? You come out here, you're hungry, you're trying to make it, so you're putting yourself. You find out what you're willing to do just so you can like keep the dream alive, right? Working crappy jobs. I remember I worked training dogs at a doggy daycares for 2 years. Other people's dogs poops. Like, so it's like, and then you have the stories of restaurant game and bartending and all this stuff in the Hollywood clubs. So those are some of I did live a lot of the cliche steps you take, but you're so busy trying to just shift into that next space of life where you're working consistently as an actor, or at least auditioning more consistently. A lot of times you don't see the stuff that's going on around you and how much harder they're making it for people, because you're so used to living in that like dog-eat-dog grind, moment to moment life, that then when I shifted and started gaining some success, I started really looking at the process of it and seeing the rat race and being like, that's frustrating. Yeah. But as I started working more and more sets of higher level, making a better income in doing it, you start to get around people, and again, they're working just like I was, just focused on getting the job done. But when you have those down now, most people are just regular people trying to just trying to be able to work again, because this is one of the few jobs where you always have to prove that you could do the job you just did maybe a week ago, just to be able to get another job.
That's a lot of pressure, you know. You go up the standard, right?
Yeah. You're like, were you still as good as you did from that commercial you just shot last week? You're like, yeah, trust me. You're like, all right, give me the lines I wrote. It made me believe them. So you're in there, but one of the things I started noticing is that as I moved up the ladder, there's a lot of actors they knew they were kind of just holding on. I had a lot of like my straight white male friends who were like, man, yeah, I gotta leave now because my agent's like, we can't get you any work. You know, those are the little quiet things that you didn't see, and them having to reconcile. What does that mean? Do I leave LA completely? Do I stay and just kind of wait till this wave passes? Because here in California, here in the industry, they do go by moment to moment, like whatever the culture thing is, right? I remember we had a casting director was talking to us in my class and saying how now the biggest thing they were doing was they're looking to cast real people with real amputees. Like that was a whole shift probably 5 or 6 years ago, where it's like they're like, don't cast anything else, you can't do fake nothing, we want real amputees. We don't care if they can act or not. We're going to make this is where we're at now. And so that's
you're like, okay, which one do I not need?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're like, man, because I got to pay this rent. It's crazy out here. The gas taxes. No, but like but the fact that they will go on by whatever box it is and whatever the most popular one is at the time, that's sort of going on. That's one of those things that happen, and it comes from the top down. So the production company is like, all right, well, we need more trans. And it's like, then that's the big push through all of the casting agency goes, all right, I work for CBS and I do some Fox shows. So right now they're telling us we need more trans. That's all I'm looking for. My assistants, hey guys, more trans, and then they set out more trans. So then it becomes a thing where you're an actor, you look up and you see like 3 of the 5 roles that you could be up for saying trans only.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and that's how it happens, where you're as an actor, as an artist who is supposed to speak out against all the craziness and call things in different ways. You start to see how it shifts, and you're still just waiting for kind of to make a little bit of cash so you can survive, and for your thing to be called. So you're like, if I just sit here, now you're watching people get canceled for saying certain things that are maybe outside of the requirements of Hollywood, and then they lose their opportunity just to try to get work.
Right.
So and just a job, but the opportunity to try to get work.
I think
you.
I think that's what people probably a whole don't necessarily realize is that concept of, and I'm speaking from my observation, so correct me where I'm wrong, but it's not, hey, once you get a role, you're getting roles all the time, and this is your job for the next 10 years. You might get one role, and then you say the thing in an interview, and all of a sudden your name is put. You're done.
That's right.
Yeah. And what you're putting together for me is this kind of, people look at Hollywood and they say everybody in Hollywood is super progressive, and you use the casting agencies as the example. And I think cool about what you just described is those agencies are just trying to do the work that they're asked to do in order to keep the contract with big networks and the big companies.
So, this just strikes me as one of those conversations where conservatives come heartbreakingly close to having an actual insight about how the world works. When you say, putting aside all of the, nonsense in the middle, I think it's pretty obvious that, the majority of Hollywood roles do not go to trans amputees. But putting that aside, right, the stuff at the end about how it's like, oh, actually Hollywood isn't particularly progressive. Like a casting agency just wants to maintain this profitable relationship with a big studio. It's like, you're almost there, buddy. And when like the stuff earlier, it's like, yeah, man, that sucks that you can, make enough money from picking up a acting gig here and there to support yourself. So, you had to take these jobs where you're doing things like cleaning up, after other people's dogs. So I hope you're on the side of SAG and the strike that's going on right now, and trying to get actors more money and more security.
So the company says, I want all trans people for my new Lumberjack movie.
Yep.
A casting agency may behind closed doors go, dude, this is insane. Why would they ask for this? But they want to, let's make them happy. Okay, this is what we'll go for. Did you notice, and you had said people kind of, they put their head down and they're just trying to keep working. Did you notice intimate conversations, quiet conversations where like people were like, this is, I don't know why we're doing this.
Yep. Oh yeah. But whether it's on set, literally, if you look at my IMDb, every network television show I did, I had a conversation with one or two people who were like, can you believe this crazy stuff going on? And if you go back, and say this to anyone watching, go back and look, and whatever year that was, that's whatever the thing was that year, that's what we talked about. So people there, and I know again, individuals from acting to all the way up to like showrunners that have created shows that you and I would be like, wait, what? That show? Oh my God, I love that all the time as a kid. To, you know, the level of like where you think they've earned a level of autonomy, where they can do, where even look at how they did Mel Gibson or Tom Cruise. You think they're high enough, and they are to a certain extent, where they can get investors to invest in their projects later. But when Mel Gibson did this thing, the Hollywood Inside was like, you're done. When Tom Cruise came out with stuff, the Hollywood Inside series, they were just so much of a business that they could bypass that those gatekeepers. But here, again, with people who shows that you'd be like, wow, you have autonomy, have sat quietly by and said it to me. I can't say nothing to support a friend because I will get canceled. I can't say nothing about the craziness that I see them pushing with the trans agenda, with the anti-American agenda. I can't say anything because then I won't work with you. And I'm sitting there going, you worked your butt off to get to this level, and I'm down over here. And if I get here, I still can't speak open. Like something's, but you know, and it's to me, it sounds funny, right? But like to me, it's what is the point as a man of working so hard for your own space to get to a level where the rug can still be pulled out from underneath you because you believe a different, not even something different, the other side of an aisle that has existed for, you know, since 40 something when Lincoln established it. But like, this is crazy. So industry where they're just sitting there waiting and be like, are you anti what now? We'll pull that rug. And that's what really kind of frustrated me in 2020 because I was working. Until it shut down. Like I hit that place where I can honestly say I made it, and all my jobs were either auditioning or acting, you know what I mean, or doing something acting related. And I watched them set up a fund. These entertainers at our award shows set up a fund to release criminals that were destroying cities all over the country in the Summer of Love. And I watched people that I knew personally, actors, make statements that would disregard those individuals that were suffering through this violence that were going. And I'm like, no, I just can't be too close to this in the same way anymore because this is wrong and I can't speak out on it. Because if I say, hey, you guys are destroying black neighborhoods in the south side of Chicago, stop.
Right.
Oh, you don't think Black Lives Matter? No, I do. Like the 6-month-old that was shot in a stroller walking around the corner from my mom's house in August. Like, come on, guys. I believe in it. You know, it's very frustrating to be an artist and to see that you weren't allowed to speak. It's a very frustrating thing. I can only imagine all the other artists that are still quiet, you know.
Yeah, just quick comment here. 2 quick comments, I think. One is, kind of saying that that rioting is bad. Okay, fine, but if you don't want it to happen, what's your understanding of why it's happening? Right? Is it just this Marxist tactic that you were talking about earlier that's like convince people that, things that aren't really big problems are big problems, that like that people are exactly that gullible, or is it actually an expression of something that's very real? And even if it's not the expression we would want, that it's like you can't just wish it away, right? You have to do something about the underlying conditions. So that's that's on the substantive disagreement about that. But then on, again, this is always what drives me crazy when conservatives start talking about essentially workplace free speech. It's like, oh, people who are actually or allegedly afraid to say this, that, or the other thing, in Hollywood, or they won't get jobs, or in this or that other context, or they're worried about career consequences. It's like, look, you care about workplace free speech, or you don't, and if you do, then you should want more and stronger unions to make it harder to fire people, since that's what actually protects workplace free speech. And of course, that's the opposite of what it always seems to turn out that these guys want.
Is it something where you might reach out to say, and I know you're in the political process at the moment, so and I don't want to diminish that by any means, but it sounds like you have a passion for the art of acting, and so
that's why I did it.
There you go. Would you reach out to like somebody like Daily Wire who's really trying to make inroads on this type of thing?
Well, we actually we started a group called Hollywood for Freedom here. Check us out, hollywoodforfreedom.com. And what we wanted to do, much like I was saying before when we were talking offline about after seeing the Trump rallies here, you're never going to convince me California is completely blue like we have been taught for the last 20+ years. We saw real people out there, and starting this group Hollywood for Freedom and seeing that, and we're a hub. We want to connect industry professionals with the.
Okay. I know I just paused, but I got to on that thing about California not being completely blue, because of course that's true. Hollywood's not, California, is not completely blue. Certainly historically, this is the state that gave the country both Nixon and Reagan. But even in a contemporary sense, if you broke up California, you could definitely carve out a couple of contiguous red states with no problem. That's true, right? Lots and lots of Republicans in California, big Republican parts of California, all absolutely true. But it's also a little bit of a funny thing for a Trump supporter to say, or a Republican in general to say, because you're right? Plenty of Republicans in California. You could absolutely carve probably multiple normal-sized red states out of California, just like you could carve multiple blue states out of Texas. But of course, the really outrageous thing is that, you have, in almost every state, winner take all distribution of electoral votes. So, California Republicans have, because they're not the majority in the state, their votes essentially don't count, just like Texas Democrats, etc. And that's really bad. We should have national popular votes. The Electoral College is this incredibly embarrassing anachronism, but of course that's the incredibly embarrassing anachronism that gave Donald Trump, who famously lost the popular vote in 2016, the presidency, just like the last Republican president before Donald Trump, George W. Bush, lost the popular vote the first time and was, well, in his case, it was the Electoral College plus the Supreme Court putting a thumb on the scale in Florida. But without the Electoral College, the Florida stuff wouldn't have mattered, right? Because he lost the national popular vote, unambiguously, regardless of the contested ballots in Florida. So it's like, yeah, you're right. It's not totally blue, but it might as well be because of the system that you guys support, because both of the Republican presidents in the 21st century would not have been initially placed into power without it.
The production companies that are looking for high-level professionals and bring them together, because regardless of what people want to think about Hollywood, talent is here.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of projects outside of Hollywood that they're again trying to do what you're talking about, but they're missing that thing, right? Like you're like, oh, that's great, but it didn't have enough salt. So we want to get to a place where we cross that gap and go, we're like-minded individuals. Most of us that have started the organization are God-led, even though we don't, hold anyone back if you're not technically, a Christian or anything. It's just, we're like-minded. We don't want any mandates. We don't want, look what's going on into your personal history to decide whether we're going to work with you or not. Either you're right for the job or you're not. It's a merit-based thing. And that's how we want these production companies to choose. And it's their choice, right?
Right.
And in that we've connected with Daily Wire, and we were just at the premiere for Terror on the Prairie about a month ago. So we are making some inroads in that direction. I started a sketch comedy group, making fun of all this called What the Fact. You can check us out, whatthefact.tv on Rumble.
I've got to check that out.
Yeah. We did a sketch about the FBI raid and everything. Because we saw what was going on, and it started with Joe Biden's statement about you ain't black, you don't vote for me. That was our first sketch we did over a year and a half ago, and so we've been building out from there because I'm a big believer. 1/3 of the issue is going to be fixed in the vote. 2/3 is going to be fixed in culture.
Absolutely.
And if we don't lead from an entertainment standpoint and from a biblical standpoint, like we're going to lose, because they do the same thing, but they lead in their entertainment standpoint.
Well, of course, Charles, we will restart the show from you. Sorry, guys, we're gonna have to rewatch all that stuff. Robbie, so off topic, but I did just want to grab this. Says, hey, was there any movement of maybe talking to Vosh? So I'll tell you exactly, right, which is that the Zach and Gavin at the Vanguard offered to host, and they would moderate a conversation between Vosh and I about essentially the class reductionism and all of that stuff that which I guess is roughly kind of what we talked about. We talked a few years ago, but I mean, like, as it sort of re-arose with the more recent controversies. And I said, yes, sure, I'd be very happy to. And he apparently didn't want to do it with a moderator. And then, I don't know, it might still happen at some point, but I don't really see much of a point. I don't like that kind of streamer debate where there's no moderator and no time limit, and it just keeps going and going and going forever until somebody calls it quits, right? I would like, hey, we're going to do this for an hour and a half, and this person's going to moderate and whatever. I just think that would be much more useful, and it doesn't really seem like, at least based on that initial communication, he was interested in that. He might change his mind, or we might figure something else out. But that was that's where things are right now with that. Yeah. Yeah, to be fair, I think what he was saying is that the conservative sketch comedy, and no comment on that, that thing started with Biden saying that. But again, it's like, you take away cringy liberal race stuff for these guys to react to, and it's like, what do they have?
But also from their secular standpoint, what you can say is Marxist, communist, that is their God that they're leading with.
Right.
So we have to do the same. We backed away from entertainment as Christians, and then we backed away from the cultural part, or the civics part, and then the cultural part we backed away from as well. And how you can see people saying, "I hate the flag," and America's consistently racist. You're like, wait a second, that's not even how I grew up in the early '80s when we're Rocky, Rambo, Commando. Everything was like USA on steroids.
Yeah,
and
Joe,
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a big believer. As I'm running, I'm also doing and trying to connect with more conservative outlets. And I always say like this: hey, we always complain about Zuckerberg and George Soros dumping hundreds of millions of dollars and da 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 da. Okay, where's our Soros and Zuckerberg?
Right.
Money to play the game. We need it to be dumped into.
And one of the things that I've been thinking about, and I'm glad you guys are doing it, and I'm sure I've said this to a lot of people, is like, it used to be Christianity was producing the great works of art, whether music, actual art. I would argue acting as well.
Yeah.
There's There's something about knowing who you are in God and being able to invest yourself into another character or whatever. But at some point, Christianity removed itself from the cultural sphere.
Yep.
We removed ourselves from so many pillars, and we were helped by the left, who said, "You're not supposed to be a part of this.
Mhm.
You need to just remove. You need to back off." Right? And we gave it up, and so now
Gave it up.
it's like we're playing catch up.
Yeah, I'm always so confused by claims like this. What does that mean? I mean, obviously, over the course of time, it's become a more secular society, not because there was some sort of like American Red Guards who went from door to door, breaking up prayer groups and confiscating Bibles, but just because over time, the cultural purchase of some of those ideas has decreased. I mean, we shouldn't exaggerate. It's still unusually religious for a first world country, but it's certainly much less religious than it was. But, I think that's just called losing in the marketplace of ideas. I don't know what to tell you there, right? That is, if you want to claim that you care about freedom of ideas and all that stuff, I mean, that just is what that looks like in practice. One of the consequences of that is some degree of secularization.
We're truly playing music with art, with acting, with film, entertainment. I want to see the good quality, amazing content.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting you point that out, because like there's just so much that I've been learning in these last 2 years historically. And I was a history major in college, and I thought I loved history and went into it. But now, as you go, I guess it's sort of even going further in on the other side. But I found out Hollywood was actually created by Christians to tell Christian stories. That's what it was there for.
Right. They used to have a.
All right. I want a citation needed on Hollywood was created by Christians. I'll just say that.
A committee.
Yeah.
Pastors and rabbis would have to meet the standards of the religious committee.
Yes.
Before it comes out. And one of the rules that they had that I love, and you probably know this, so I know for those listening and viewing, you couldn't have the bad guy win at the end of the film or the story. The bad guy had to be brought to justice.
So that sounds like when it was a less secular society, and also there was less freedom of artistic expression, there was shittier art. That's what I got out of that.
And now almost every movie is the bad guy wins, the bad guy's
the bad guy's
yeah. Also, citation needed on almost every movie the bad guy wins. Last I checked, the overwhelming market dominance came from like MCU crap, where if the bad guy wins, that means it's not the last movie with the trilogy.
the hero.
Right.
Right. Like I know my godsons love Minions, but the premise is it's a super villain. Like, what? That's not lost on anybody. So we're supposed to be in that. They actually had a committee that famous line, and frankly, what was it in Gone with the Wind? Frankly, I don't give a damn. Like they had a conversation about the word damn. And like, I'm not one to go, hey, let's go all the way there, but our influence has been gone, even to the point where Harvard, Princeton, Brown, Yale, those are Christian schools. Mm-hmm. Those are now. So not only did we leave entertainment, we left not just education, but the highest level of education. Christians said, "No, we're good. We advocated it."
Right.
Right. In this point, and I talked to you earlier about just being baptized this year. And been reading the Bible with my fiance. And as the first book we read, and this is the first time I ever finished a book in the Bible that wasn't just like read this verse or read this chapter. I read actually a whole book and multiple at this point, but we read Romans first. And I'm telling you, people need to go and check out Romans 6. It's wild that it's like this is what's happening today. But I'm reading Romans, and we're reading it. And it says very clearly, you turn away from God, these things happen. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't have to, you don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to believe in any of this if you don't want. But I'm a believer in history. And seeing this book was written so long ago that I can look and go, if we turn away from God, women will lose their natural their nature and what they want in there, and men will stop having use for them and start being with each other. Oh wait,
burning and passion for each other, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Strikes me that as societies become more secular, and yes, I absolutely agree with your comment, Antonio, that the giant contradiction at the heart of a lot of these views is that they can't accept that a greater degree of cosmopolitanism, less localism, or etc. That process of all that is solid melting into air is to a great extent a byproduct of the economic system that they love. So it has to be a Marxist conspiracy. But, it does seem to me, with regard to his last comment, that as a matter of fact, we'll wait for a committee of fact checkers to get back on this. But I do not think everybody's become gay as fewer people believe in God. It seems like heterosexuality is doing just fine. So, that quote from Romans seems pretty disconfirmed to me.
Exactly. And then you'll see backbiting, you'll see whispering, you'll see contempt for each other, you'll see all these things in your society. I'm like,
oh,
I got a question. Where'd you get this cheat sheet? Like you see these things.
Time machine, Paul.
Right, exactly. And for me, like, I'm a believer, so that proves the point to me because I'm living in it. It proves it in my belief even more. I say to others, okay, you see, they wrote about this. Whether you believe in God or not, there's a natural thing that happens when we start to push the opposite of our nature. There's something that happens, and this book says this happens. I believe that this is a word of God, and look what's happening. So again, whether you believe in God or not has nothing to do with the fact that history has shown us something.
Right.
Look around you and use that as your guide. The history is our guide.
Yeah.
If we don't know it, we're doomed to repeat it as we're doing right now.
And I've actually used Romans 1, so people will say the whole homosexuality debate and all of that, and it gives clarity to, like, look, this is a consequence of the way that the civilization or the culture takes.
Exactly.
So Romans 1 walks you through that step process that they gave up worshiping the Creator for the Creator, including ourselves. We start worshiping our bodies, ourselves. We worship the animals. We worship everything but who created it. And what happens is then our minds are darkened. We become foolish, and then we start acting out in these ways that Paul laid. And it's a process of actions and reactions, or consequences, if you will. And you're right. That's historical. It shows the process that we see time and time again in Camille Paglia. I don't know if you've heard of her or not.
No.
She's a professor of art, feminist. She might be even a lesbian. If she's not, I'm not sure. But she's a feminist. But she lines of Jordan Peterson and kind of his thought. She's come out against this new movement of feminism.
Wow. Okay.
She points to art history, and says, look, a civilization is decaying when art represents men in more feminine form. She says, so in the early periods, and she uses like Greek and Roman and various art periods. Early on in, say, Greek and Roman are statuesque, they're muscular, they're firm, they're straight. There's not like, what I mean? Like they're all in statuesque.
They're very masculine men, yes.
Exactly. And as the art progresses, when you get to the late art, all of a sudden,
famously a period when no one was gay.
Sudden the men are represented. She describes them as noodle arm. So they're very soft. And she says that like this expression becomes anything anybody wants to be, and everything's up for nation and reworking, right? And so you're witnessing people in the secular realm who wouldn't normally recognize this process are affirming what Rose was saying the whole time.
That's again. This is like my belief has grown the more I've read the Bible, because things are coming out and I'm seeing things that are just there. right? And it's just like, that's just truth at this point, because I look at it from a biblical standpoint, be like, all right, God, like, you know, give me what you're trying to have me learn here. I want to know more about your word. And I also look at it from a historical standpoint to my experience in the world and what I've seen us go through. And I'm like, wait a second, it's so parallel. It's wild how parallel. And I remember reading Mark, and he was actually, no, it was Matthew, and he's talking about the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and you don't trust them as they're wearing all this gold, and you know, I'm paraphrasing, but like basically like the people who are dressed up the most, saying that I have the authority, be careful with those, right? And that no one is higher than anyone under the family of God. Even though someone can be your teacher, doesn't mean they're higher than you, right? Exactly. And be careful of those that act like that. And all I kept thinking was like, and may hurt some people, and I apologize, but I just think about you know, Catholicism, the Catholic Church, and I'm like, but that's the Pope who rides in the gold stuff and things, and they have the hierarchy that people like, they have all this gold, like what's, and I'm just, again, this is now historical. I'm not going on this because God said in here you're this. No, I go, he's describing people. And who in this day and age says we hold the truth to the biblical standpoint, and look how they carry themselves? And I'm like, oh, well, all right, kind of looks like this, right? So it affirms, it starts to get to a point where it affirms like just the truth of the Bible even more, because you can just look outside the window and go, all right, well,
and I love that you have a passion for history. I do too. Nancy does. Elijah does. Like, history informs us of that process, right?
Yes.
And a lot of people, history's, no, you just had bad history teachers.
Yes, on purpose.
It's such a massive story, and who can tell history in a story framework.
Yeah, to Charles's comment, I wish I remembered who I plagiarized in here, but there's a line that's always stuck in my head. Do not remember who said it, about, you know, to be a conservative is basically to revere the Western tradition and not actually know much of anything about it. And even the stuff about the Bible is often a case in point. You know, on Monday night's post game with Katie Halper, we were watching Ben Shapiro talk about Israel-Palestine. And in the course of it, you know, one of the first things he said is, you know, he was debunking these like, what he called these like myths about it. And one of the myths was that this is historically Muslim land, which is just the dumbest possible way to frame a conversation. Nobody's human rights should be contingent on, you know, whose ancestors lived where. But you know, putting that aside, he had in the course of, you know, of taking apart what he called that myth, he said, well, you know, one of the things he mentioned was the Bible, right? He said the Bible and certain interpretations of contemporary archaeology show that, you know, the first temple was there from whatever, you know, BC. And it's like, hold on, though. Have you read this thing? Because if you're going to use the Bible to settle this question, I'm pretty sure it was Canaanite land originally. Before the genocide that's described in the last few books of the Torah. So yeah, I mean, that's you know, like that is, there is something that's like you know, yeah, well, okay, right, good point, right? It's you know, so it can't be Muslim land before 600 AD, and it can't be, you know, Jewish land before a few thousand years ago. So what about before that, right? So, you know, again, extremely stupid argument to have in any direction. But like, even relative to that stupid argument, it's a very stupid way of having the argument. And it's like, yeah, a lot of this stuff about the Bible, you know, it's so strange, right? I mean, it's like, I always wonder, like, okay, how much of this thing do these people actually read? Like, surely you would count, like, surely any conservative today would think of, like, you know, polygamy as a form of sexual degeneracy. Like, you know, anybody, you know, like, I remember, you know, I'm old enough that I remember back when conservatives used to make anti-gay marriage arguments all the time. And I remember they always said, it's the Bible says marriage is between one man and one woman. That's the biblical definition of marriage. It's like, you guys literally haven't read this book, because I'm pretty sure the implicit biblical definition of marriage is one man and some number of women. That can vary quite wildly, right? So it's like talking about the Bible in the course of saying all this stuff. It's just, anyway, reminds me of that quote. I really wish I remembered who I was stealing that from. But let's go back to this.
Yes.
So many truths from that, right?
Well, that's why Jesus spoke in parables, because stories sit in the human heart so much more than just statistical facts, right?
Right.
That's why I believe it's like you when you said it right there, it's like we have to look at the stories of our past. They teach, and I had a few history teachers that were great in junior high and high school, but for the most part, they taught it like mathematics. That's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a story.
Names.
Exactly. The dates and names, and then we're supposed to just feel good or bad about it.
Right.
But when you break down, and we are living in a point of time that people will look back, read about, and go, man, they had this summer of love. They called the riots. They called Summer of Love. They had a peaceful protest. They called the most dangerous day in American history. They had, government officials going into people's homes with guns drawn. They raided a president's home. Like, these are things that back in 1992, when I'm reading this and go, how can a society let this happen? Oh my God.
Yeah, how can society allow a president to be legally prosecuted the same way any ordinary citizen would be when he blatantly commits crimes and admits to committing crimes, is on tape numerous places admitting to committing crimes? It's really interesting. These documents are classified. I'm not allowed to unclassify them. This is actually very illegal. I'm not supposed to have these. Do you want to read one of my illegal documents? I don't know. That seems like I would ask the question in the opposite direction, right? If powerful people are exempt from laws, what does that say about your society?
Now we're here now. So history needs to be told from this space from the storytelling, because that's where the passion is. Like, what would you do? You're in this position that they're banging at your door and your hands are up. And what do you want to do? You want to like yell at them, but they got guns. Like, what do you do? What does that mean in that moment? Not just, they.
And again, right? How does this only apply to right-wingers who get in trouble with the FBI and not to law enforcement in general? This level of empathy for people who are being bullied by law enforcement with guns, right? Why is it that the local cops are totally fine? There's just no pretense of coherence here. Why is it that like the local cops, why is it that unarmed people being killed in dubious police shootings is a minor problem, that it's like Marxist tactics to get people to pretend is a major problem, but an even smaller number of, right-wingers who are at the Capitol on January 6th and, for the sake of argument, didn't do anything bad or violent, and so really are being harassed. But it's like, whatever, that's a much smaller group of people. So it's like, if people actually being killed in police shootings is supposed to be a minor problem that it's Marxist tactics to make a big deal of, why isn't that an even more minor problem, right? Why isn't he doing mega Marxist tactics here?
Amen. And then they raided the Black Panthers' home, and now everything ended, and Black Party's done. It's like, no, what happened? What was it like? Now I know what outside, a portion of Huey P. Newton went to. He was unfortunately shot and killed in his bed with his pregnant wife.
Okay, he's thinking of Fred Hampton, not Huey P. Newton. Huey P. Newton lived well beyond this period. But yeah, that is, a very different experience from Huey P. Newton's. I think it would be fair to say it is from Fred Hampton's. I think it is definitely trivializing that. I also think that, I know that like some not very bright people have tried to pick up Fred Hampton's legacy, but the guy actually had things to say that are are much more interested in substantive than the kind of liberalism that Siaka seems to be happiest arguing against.
But that initial, like, oh my goodness, that he come in, I'm like, oh my, like, this is and I'm not gonna lie, I heard you hear those stories. They come in the house, I'm like, well, they gonna take me out too now because they've done it.
And all they avoiding conspiracy theory, all they have to say is we felt in danger, we had to use lethal force. And how do you
and how does this not make you reflect on people being shot by cops? Right? That's like, how does this insight that all they would have to say is they felt in danger, etc., how does that fit with what Siaka says earlier in this same interview about people being shot by cops being such a minor problem because it's so much less common than other kinds of murder, and so much less common than people being killed in street crime, and therefore it's just like a Marxist tactic to make a big deal of it? How can these two thoughts coexist in your head at the same time? I do not understand.
Is it a conspiracy theory? Or at this point, and we should also take it, the narratives and shift it back, because conspiracy theory, that the statement was started by the CIA, but what conspiracy theories from 2020 hasn't been proven right with the right amount of time at this point? Because
almost all of them.
All of COVID is.
There's a whole podcast episode called "We Were Right," and we were
right. The conspiracy theorists.
Right. We pointed out all the stuff that we've been saying on this podcast for the last couple of years about COVID and all of that. Like, now they're suddenly coming out and saying, by the way, that.
Don't worry about it. You're good. Everything's fine. It's just the sniffles.
Right.
Remember when we said we shouldn't let you work? Just joking. You can work now. Yeah, but it's already too late because you don't have a job, and now they're not going to let you back in anyway. But it's wild what's going on.
Isn't so?
But I always like to tell people, and I know they like to use the always, never forget, right? They always say never forget. No, we got to switch that because of the negative connotation. Always remember. Always remember.
I like that.
Always remember who was around saying these things to you, about you. Always remember who shut things down illegally. Always remember who put us in this situation, and move accordingly, vote accordingly from there, because they did it once, they definitely can do it again.
Those are like,
Charles, that is always the $1 million question with this stuff. Who is they? It's a word that does so much heavy lifting in these conversations, but it's so, I think a lot of times people don't want to go in the even crazier directions they would have to actually pick a they, so they just let that be a free-floating signifier.
Perfect ending words, because we have to go.
No, I'm like, what are they?
Man, you rounded it up perfectly.
Hey, that's the industry, baby. That's the industry.
Exactly. I love it. I was in that interview that you sent out to me from Rumble, and forgive me, I can't remember what the channel or the guy was. But immediately what I noticed was how well you did the interview. Because you put some people on and make it and like the person interviews like, come on.
But it's a rhythm thing. It's a rhythm thing.
Exactly. And what I immediately thought was, he's an actor, Hollywood, public eye. He knows how to do interviews. And so these type of interviews are the joy, because they're so
Thank you, sir. And I've been doing interviews since football back in what was it, 1996, when randomly one of the after a football game, they came up and like, the Chicago Sun-Times wants to talk to you. I'm like, why? Because at this point, you wait till a lot of guys, like, you have to be real good to get to varsity. So I had to wait till junior high school, and then they're like, they want to talk to you. And I'm just like, for what? And then now we're sitting there going, well, teammates. It's just something that it's one of those gifts that God gave me. And
all right, I think we're going to cut that one off there. Let's go to the next one of these on the appearances page. Let's see. you know what? Let's go to the Babylon Bee. So this is, I think this might be before he started doing regular content for them. But
Biden blames inflation on ultra MAGA policies that would hurt families. But hey, at least it's not super ultra MAGA 2 Turbo Championship Edition.
All right, I reserve the right to cut this off really early if the levels of unfunniness get unbearable. But let's watch a little bit of that.
People are intimidating Supreme Court justices outside their homes, just as the founding fathers intended.
Elon Musk announced he will unban Trump from Twitter, but Trump is busy living his truth.
There's a shortage on baby formula. Too bad women don't exist anymore, or they could just breastfeed.
The iPod is being discontinued after years of no one using it. It now joins Microsoft Zune. I'm too young for that. In iHeaven.
All this and more on
The Bee Weekly.
Here we are, everybody, the Babylon Bee podcast. Today I'm joined by Morgan, our social media manager.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I have no idea what conspiracy from 2020 has actually been proven to be true. I mean, look, I agree with that assessment, Skella, right? Lab leak is feasible, though unproven. But like, that's even exactly a conspiracy from 2020, but whatever. Like, it's like, yeah, that's certainly not definitively established. You know, there's like circumstantial reasons to think that, but it's definitely up in the air. Otherwise, I mean, like, it seemed like his example in that video was, fewer COVID precautions being taken now, which it's like, okay, one, you could interpret that in one of two ways, right? Either they're wrong now or they're wrong then, right? But two, of course, that's like, it's not like nothing relevant happened since then, like massive distribution of vaccines and, which COVID strains, are actually more deadly or less deadly, and et cetera. So it's like, that just seemed like an incredibly lazy example. And otherwise, it's like, I don't know, which is that people were just dying, with COVID, not from COVID. No, we know that's not true because we can look at the excess death numbers. That ivermectin, was an effective COVID cure. It's like, well, no, that one didn't turn out. It's like, pretty sure you guys' batting average on this still sucks.
You want to go by Morgan or MJ? Do you care?
Let's go with MJ.
Okay.
Ooh, yeah.
So we're joined by Morgan and Siaka.
There you go. You got it.
Do you want to go by Siaka or MJ?
Let's stick with Siaka this time. Yeah. Next time I come back.
Should I try to pronounce your last name, or are we good with
Siaka? You can. I mean, most people don't usually just call me Siaka.
Massaquoi.
Oh, he got it.
Did I nail it?
He got it.
Siaka Massaquoi. All
He got
right.
it.
You are running for state assembly in District 43 here in California.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Oh, awesome.
Yes, sir. That's a crazy blue LA County, but hey, we got to take a shot now.
Yeah, I see Robert says, if I may be so bold, if the goal is to debate a black conservative intellectual, Lipton Matthews, I don't know who that is, might be a better choice. Yano says, I'm pretty sure Ben's calculus was an all right time to debate a black guy, Robert. Yeah, here was my calculus. I wanted to debate somebody who lived in Los Angeles, who is who's a conservative public figure who lived in Los Angeles, who was willing to debate me. That's literally the selection procedure. And out of the pool of one that created, I went with that one.
Right, man.
Yeah,
That's
we have
awesome.
to. So,
Someone's going to do it. It's you.
wow, thank you.
You're
Yeah, from
welcome.
your lips to God's ears, I like to say.
I've known you for 5 minutes. I'm like, this guy got it in the bag.
Wow, there it is. There it is. You guys heard it here first, folks, on the Babylon Bee podcast. It's in the bag. Yeah. So I mean, it's been cool and interesting to put my name in a hat. I've been kind of active anyway for the last 2 years, and I feel like this has been a natural progression to rallies.
The World War I flu pandemic was bullshit. It's just
joining
the
different
sniffles now.
organizations. So let's see what we can do to take the state back in the right and turn it back to the right direction.
That's awesome. And you also do some acting and producing and
Yes,
small business owning and
yeah. Well, when they allow you to stay open. No, my trade, I'm an actor by trade. Yeah. This is what I came out to do, back in 2004. I came here from Chicago, and acting was the one thing I found that I enjoyed the preparation just as much as the end result. And so I was living my dream in 2019. I actually had a play that was gonna open up the week that they shut down, and that play was for me to like reinvigorate myself with the love of acting, because it was getting very business-like, an audition, you read like 8 scripts, you do your thing. And this play was that play, and it was getting me back in love with the arts, and then nope, shut down. Right.
Oh,
so
man. Terrible.
But I think it opened up and pushed me in a direction, and pushed me and some friends we make our own sketch comedy. We joined groups now that we've established. One of the founding members of HollywoodForFreedom.com, where we're organizing with other production companies around Southern California, even all the way out to some in Tennessee and New York. And we're building a infrastructure for like-minded individuals who just want to tell good stories and they don't want to be inundated with agenda. Right. When we're seeing like our greatest act.
I'm just going to make an empirical prediction here. Haven't actually seen any content if these guys have put any of it out, but I would rate the probability that anything that Hollywood for Freedom puts out is not inundated with an obvious agenda at right about 0. Right? That would be my guess.
IP's going to crap because of this, right? So we've started this, and I think even as bad as 2020 was for a lot of reasons, I think it propelled us to get back to that space that we really are, which are creators, and get back to that creative space. So we created that. We've been creating sketch comedy with WhatTheFact.tv for the last year and a half. And I want to continue to make. You guys are great at the comedy, and so great that you guys will get banned on Twitter. I think that I want to applaud that. Can I applaud that?
Sure.
Yeah. I'll do it. I think they're done. They've clapped enough about it.
It was
Travis started to clap, and then nobody else did, and he got intimidated
and got scared. Hey, I'll lead the way. Hey, trust me. Oh, there it is. Trust me. I've been.
I'll do it.
Darrell.
I'll use that sword over there.
Darrell's gonna carry the sword too. So we already discussed this.
Well, this week on the Babylon Bee, we had a banger of the week. Hey, Babylon Bee listeners, Kyle here, asking you to be a flag bearer for freedom. Right now, ADF is looking for flag bearers to help lead the fight against the Biden administration's policies and the anti-freedom attacks targeting our kids, churches, schools, women's sports, and First Amendment rights. Your monthly gift to Alliance Defending Freedom helps protect parents and children, female athletes, churches, and everyday Americans.
I just want to suggest that for anybody who knows a little bit about German politics, AFD might not be the best acronym for a right-wing organization.
Americans trying to freely live out their faith. Please support ADF today by going to adflegal.org/B. That's adflegal.org/BEE. And thanks for your continued support of ADF. You will receive a 3x5 foot.
Okay, to be fair, it's not AFD, it's ADF. I misheard it the first time.
American flag. With this flag, show your support for the greatest country of all time and your willingness to step up when our freedoms are under attack. Claim your gift and help defend religious liberty and free speech today by going to adflegal.org/B. That's adflegal.org/BEE.
Banger of the week.
Let's check out our banger of the week. This is our top performing article.
Yeah, absolutely. Major Oregon American right-wingers have poised the word freedom so intensely. It's truly Orwellian. This is very, very true, right? That like freedom just means letting corporations do whatever they want, even if that's making it easier to fire people, and for those corporations to then have more control over workers' lives. That's worth saying as often as at all possible.
Buffalo hat wearing Elizabeth Warren leads insurrection against the Supreme Court. Of course, we actually did have Elizabeth Warren out there shouting things that would have gotten Trump banned from Twitter back in the day.
I mean, we all saw the video.
Yeah, well, she didn't actually wear a buffalo.
Well, I know,
That beat you.
which was great though.
Thank
But we
you.
saw her
Remember it.
riling everybody up. Where's the tears? I remember how they
That's
talked
true.
about the 6th, and everyone. Oh, where's all the nothing?
This is so like I know this is like an old video, but it's like I literally have no idea what they're talking about. If Elizabeth Warren led some group of people to fight with the Capitol Police, I'm really disappointed I didn't hear about that because that sounds very funny.
She's fine.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
She's good.
Well, she's native, so I get it. They don't want the indigenous people here. They want to leave them alone.
The crazier one was
We can't talk about the Trail of Tears with her. It's
No, it's very set. It's about 0.00082% sensitive for her, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
That's true.
That's true.
Sad, not good.
Not good.
But the crazier one was the Lori Lightfoot tweet that I see that in the notes, but I saw that the other day.
Yeah, when she said we need to, what did she say? Take up arms.
Take up
Yeah, take up arms.
Like if that can't be interpreted as to go shoot
Like
somebody.
any other way.
Like a call to arms or
Like,
something.
yeah, this woman who said, "Good luck, you're on your own, South Side of Chicago and West Side of Chicago," but had police officers on her block on either side to protect her house, and says, "Well, I need to go get my hair done."
With
'cause I'm
like
on
the
TV."
shooting statistics in Chicago, it's just a very interesting choice of words.
I mean, it's like it would be, if it was a movie, we would laugh at it, but it's like real lives, like
Yeah.
to see. And I'm from Chicago, so I've watched this since 2010, and then turn it up and to turn it into a war zone. It wasn't that
Yeah.
where I grew up, and yeah, there were bad parts, and they had the Cabrini Green high rises, but when your governor or your mayor is saying,
Yeah, exactly. They're really scratching the bottom of the barrel, finding something to be outraged about here. Okay, so we got into this whole diversion about crime in Chicago or the Chicago response to the 2020 riots. I'm sure they're all very happy Lori Lightfoot is gone now. But it's, to recap, the thing they started out pretending to be outraged about was that Lori Lightfoot used the phrase call to arms. And I don't know whether they were pretending to be taking that in some weirdly ultra literal way that nobody would be taking it, or to say that, like, I don't know, if Trump or somebody said call to arms, it would be taken that way. But this is like, even by Babylon Bee standards, this is pretty weak tea.
that, telling Congress, councilmen that want to help their community that are afraid of being shot at. Just a lot of them shot and killed old ladies that have stores burned down. It's like she's telling them to shut the up.
I'm gonna be honest, Lori Lightfoot is straight up my sleep paralysis demon.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry.
Like, I don't want to like roast appearances, but I'm so scared of her.
She looks like Beetlejuice. It's fine. Here's the one.
She's the old like hag sitting at the end of my bed when I wake up.
Do you just start saying the Lord's Prayer right when it happens? That usually helps.
I'm not Catholic, but I'm doing it.
Hey, it still works. It still works.
True.
When a demon comes in your room, just say the Lord's Prayer. It'll give you a little, get you out of there.
Absolutely.
Did you guys know the tweet that got Trump banned from Twitter? It's so she goes and she says the take up arms, it's time to fight.
Yeah.
His tweet was, the 75 million great American patriots who voted for me, America first, and make America great again, will have a giant voice long into the future. They will not be disrespected or treated unfairly in any way, shape, or form. To all those who have asked, I will not be going to the inauguration on January 20th. That got him banned from Twitter.
Look, I don't think they ever should have banned him from Twitter. I agree with Will Menaker's take at the time. He said on Chapo that Donald Trump should probably be in prison, but he should absolutely be allowed to post from inside prison. That would be my preferred solution also. But pretending that it was just that tweet is it's pretty fucking silly. All right, let's keep going.
For glorifying violence.
Honestly, like, it was such a big deal, but I couldn't even remember any part of that.
That was the tweet that they said, and they said, well, we have to interpret this more broadly in the context of the election.
But take up arms means
Take up arms is fine. Yeah.
Really light foot.
That all
that
they
just
do is
means,
win?
well,
Is
it's
that
just
what it means?
protest and yeah.
Oh my god,
Love that for us.
man, we need everyone to get out and vote. Get out and vote. And here in California, I'm sorry to switch, but it's like we're seeing this. Get out and vote, and you can't be independents. Independent voters, you gotta have to pick a side, because if you don't pick a side, then you truly don't have anyone to pick in the general, because the primaries are right now, and this is when you have to get out there and vote. Register as Republican or Dem, I don't care, but this way you get to vote in the primaries, guys. Like, this is
And
Yep.
also share Babylon B articles on Twitter while we're gone to trigger a lib.
yes, and there you go.
But sadly, some Babylon B articles didn't get shared that much, like our bomb of the week.
Bomb of the week.
Oh,
Demons of Hell unanimously agree about value of gender-affirming care for children. It's like,
ideological content aside, I really feel like I could fix the format of this show, right? Like, I feel like almost anybody could give them some tips about how to make this more entertaining, because this format is painful. I don't know how much more of this I'm going to be able to watch, but let's at least try to push through a couple more minutes.
Let me ask you this: what
Agree
consists
on
of a
those.
bomb?
it just didn't get that many shares.
Okay.
So we look at the share counts, and the one that didn't get very many shares.
I mean,
And
you guys
normally it can be like pretty based, but it's ones
Like, people
that
don't wanna
you
click
don't want to
share.
share it to your great aunt. and be
Yeah, I was like,
demons
the
of hell.
demons. You got gender affirming children. That's like, you guys. Hey, I'm all about comedy. I can see how that
Yeah.
can be hard.
I also don't think a lot of people know what gender affirming care is. It
No.
doesn't.
True.
It is one of those soft words to try to disguise. what it actually
as
is.
we want to turn it at your
Sometimes
kids.
we just go in a little hard. We had the Mickey Mouse and the transgender scalpel the other week. Was that the bomb?
Was
Hey,
that
but
bomb?
wait.
That was my favorite.
Wait, but isn't Disney doing that anyway?
Well, it was
So
like
is that
the
really
secret
satire?
mouse tool is the transgender surgery scalpel.
It's a surprise tool that will help us later.
Yeah, no, I'm sitting next to Kyle while he's posting that, and he kept doing the voice all day, and it was hilarious.
Oh
Oh,
my
that's
God.
right. I forgot. I did that in Florida.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. But that's what I'm saying. I think you guys aren't satirical on that.
I just want to point out I know I keep harping on this, and I know it kind of seems like I've got a one-track mind because I'm obsessing about the time he used the word Marxist in the previous video, but I just cannot get over the level of cognitive dissonance between him saying in the previous video that it's this like insidious Marxist tactic that people will make a big deal of things that don't actually affect very many people, that are minor problems, and use the example of like people actually literally dying, from police shootings, and then turn around in the next video. I think maybe literally the next one in the appearances page. I might be slightly out of order here. Turn around in the next video and make this big a deal about trans kids, when it's like, well, hold on, if you want to talk about things that really involve very, very few people. Remember there was that amazing clip when Matt Walsh was on Joe Rogan, and Walsh was talking not even about like surgery, which is what they're insinuating here, but about puberty blockers. And Joe asks him, well, how often does this actually happen though, right? How many times are puberty blockers actually assigned or actually prescribed, not for like, premature puberty and stuff, which also happens, but assigned, how often are puberty blockers actually prescribed, for gender dysphoria? And Matt Walsh said, I don't know, I think it's got to be up to the millions. And, Joe Rogan was like, hey, JB, pull that up, right? And Jamie, the producer, I met when I was on there. It does indeed pull it up, and it turns out that it's like less than 5,000 in the entire country in the last 5 years. So that's like under 1,000 cases a year in the entire country of, hundreds of millions of people. And this is what they're sort of, again, like, and that's blockers, not, anything beyond that. And this is what they're literally doing satanic panic about. I mean, that's that very hilarious Demons from Hell joke, right? Like, how is this not the very thing that you were denouncing as a Marxist tactic of blowing things up to be the biggest problem in the world when they're not?
That topic, though.
So one thing that has not bombed at the Babylon Bee, though, is Sizzler Facts. 5 weeks ago, we debuted a new feature to the podcast called Sizzler Facts, and it has been met with overwhelmingly positive feedback. Here's an interesting Sizzler fact out of Stockton, California. Captain Crab Boiling Seafood and Bar recently took over a vacant restaurant in Elk Grove, formerly occupied by, you guessed it, Sizzler. While they do offer Louisiana-style Cajun seafood, one thing they don't offer is choices. This has been...
Don't sue us.
Sizzler Facts. Now it's time for B Radio with Austin Robertson.
Factually inaccurate. Morally correct. This is Babylon Bee Radio. Our top story. FBI agents have confronted the mob surrounding Justice Kavanaugh's home, warning them to steer clear of the house next door as a local school board member lives there. The FBI had initially declined to investigate security risks to the Supreme Court justices, as agents were busy planning how to kidnap another moderately attractive Democrat governor. However, after being alerted of the mob's proximity to a school board member, the FBI immediately surrounded the area with snipers and dispatched several SWAT units.
All right. Charles asked in the chat, what the fuck are they talking about? Unfortunately, I think... I think it's not a good sign for my mental health, but I think I actually can follow this entire... are we going to use the word joke here? Does this rise to the level of a joke? This is kind of the equivalent of one of those old Dennis Miller things from his, like, post 9/11 super Bushy era, when, he's just literally doing nothing but stringing together 100 references very fast, and people are laughing about it. It's like, oh, is that comedy? I guess. Yeah. So he is. So the satire here, which is really just this like long series of like angry, hey, you remember this? Things that they're doing to people within a conservative media bubble to try to elicit right-wing clapter from them. Is they're talking about a couple things. One of the things they're talking about is protesters. So I think this is 2022. So protesters at Brett Kavanaugh's house. I believe this is after the Dobbs decision to overturn Roe v. Wade was overturned. And so people were protesting outside the homes of Supreme Court justices. And so the very hilarious joke they're making is, that the cops didn't care about this mob, right? They're calling it a mob, that, people protesting Supreme Court justice. But then they found out there's a school board member the next door. And so, of course, they had to bring in a SWAT team to stop that. So what they're referencing there is like this kind of conservative meme that like concerned right-wing parents who are mad about, supposed CRT or gender stuff or whatever, are being treated as if they were criminals. So that's the connection they're making. There. There was some other incredibly stupid thing after that. I actually, I don't know. Here, you know what? I'm going to subject myself to this one more time to get the last part of this.
This is Babylon Bee Radio. Our top story. FBI agents have confronted the mob surrounding Justice Kavanaugh's home, warning them to steer clear of the house next door as a local school board member lives there. The FBI had initially declined to investigate security risks to the Supreme Court justices as agents were busy planning how to kidnap another moderately attractive Democrat governor.
Okay, yep. So there were three things. There's conservative outrage about people being allowed to protest outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house. There's conservative outrage about allegedly the Justice Department portraying right-wing parents who are hot and bothered about CRT or trans stuff or whatever as being like criminals or terrorists. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is a reference to the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, which is, so that's the moderately attractive Democrat governor that they're referring to there. I don't know what her being moderately attractive has to do with anything. But which is, to be fair, it is actually true that the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping plot, that there was like a, like undercover cop, agent provocateur element to that. Although it's also very telling that this is like the one case of that the Babylon Bee cares about, right? I mean, they don't care about the 500 cases since 9/11. I'm making up the number. I have no idea how many cases it is, but lots of cases, right? A lot more cases in the decade since 9/11 where some random mentally ill, socially isolated Muslim guy is recruited to do terrorism by an undercover FBI agent, and they spend like a year like wheedling him and trying to convince him to help them do terrorism. And finally he says yes, and they clap on the handcuffs, right? I mean, it's the same basic complaint, but they don't care about that because like the people who are being entrapped in the Michigan case are like right-wing militia people who they see as their kind of people, not like, bad, scary Muslims. So that is, I think, the full string of right-wing media inanities that are being strung together and called a joke there.
However, after being alerted of the mob's proximity to a school board member, the FBI immediately surrounded the area with snipers and dispatched several SWAT units. At publishing time, the FBI said it would remain all hands on deck to protect the school board from dangerous parents who try to read disturbing assigned elementary curriculum at board meetings. The FBI has also requested that calls from those annoying female gymnasts be sent to voicemail. The U.S. House of Representatives is scheduled to vote on a health care bill that, if passed, will legalize Clinton-assisted suicide in all 50 states. The bold new bill, which experts are calling a major win for civil rights, will award the Clinton family a veritable license to kill. They will be legally certified to terminate the elderly, disabled, comatose, and politically inconvenient at their own discretion. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Many people don't want to be alive. We can't force people to live, especially those who are close to exposing government secrets. Being a whistleblower or independent journalist is an obvious cry for help. They are literally saying, please kill us. And who are we to tell them that they can't shoot themselves twice in the back of the head?
If the bill goes to the Senate, it will likely pass only with the help of a tie-breaking vote by VP Kamala Harris. The VP's already voiced approval for the bill and has described suicide as a time when people kill themselves.
And that time is every day.
Republican leaders have decried the bill as the legalization of murder and a dangerous blow in the heart of democracy. House Democrats have warned Republicans to stop the partisan rhetoric, or else they might end up committing suicide. During a press conference aimed at praising the commander-in-chief's flawless track record, Press Secretary Jen Psaki begrudgingly took a question from some gloom-and-doom journalists describing parents' struggles in finding baby formula. Psaki guffawed, saying parents unable to obtain baby formula should just feed their babies a margarita and put them in a kickboxing class.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm tapping out. I think this is about as much Babylon Bee humor as I can take for today. I guess to recap though, right? Like taking kind of a long step back, it is going to be really interesting to see what this guy does when he is in a situation where he can't just do autobiography, right? He can't just he can't just talk about his experiences with annoying Hollywood liberals, and he can't just bounce off complaining about sort of liberal race cringe, but like he's actually expected to defend some policy positions. Because I think we did get, sort of panning for content in all of this. I think we did get a few actual political positions that were expressed. So one of them was blaming the schools for people not balancing checkbooks, and people not being taught to do things that make them self-sufficient, right? Which sounds like pretty standard conservative blaming poor people for poverty. I also heard a claim in all of that that, well, Americans are actually doing pretty well, that the streaming services, all that stuff. So maybe actually there is no big deal poverty issue, although crime is a big problem, but police killing is not, because it's so minor, because it because it happens to relatively few people, right? It's a relatively rare event. So what's the big deal? Because it's so much less common than street crime. And also I heard that gender affirming care for minors is a big problem somehow, despite the much tinier numbers of people involved. I also heard some very selective claims about workplace free speech, although, of course, like every conservative who raises that complaint, he's unwilling to talk about actual solutions, like more and stronger unions, better labor laws, less at-will employment, things that would actually make it harder for bosses to fire people if they disagree with their views. So I have to say, all of this seems like a incoherent muddle of status quo justification. But I would just, and that doesn't mean he's not a nice guy personally. I mean, that's, he's come off that way in my interactions with him setting up the debate. I think lots of people, are perfectly personable or well-intentioned, and as individuals, and are the bearers of all kinds of toxic nonsense ideology. That's not, the point is not about him as a person, but the point is about the ideas. And the point I would just kind of circle back to is one of the first things that we talked about at the beginning of the video, right? We watched that short Stories of Us video on PragerU, and it's like, oh my God, the kinds of platforms that Siaka is handed by the right from these, billionaire-funded platforms like PragerU that have a reach that's like unfathomable by the standards of left media. He has that had almost 3 million views, that video, right? So it's like, this is somebody who, like every right-wing media figure, has easy access to giant audiences, and is used to being in forums where this, again, frankly, not a personal comment, just a comment on the ideology, this frankly incoherent muddle of status quo justification, that, police misconduct isn't a problem, somehow, like, puberty blockers are, even though it's a smaller number, that actually people should just be taught to be self-sufficient, that it's bad when conservatives are hassled by the FBI, or when conservatives are worried that they won't get jobs because of expressing their opinions, but we're not actually going to do anything to change the balance of power in society in the direction of empowering the working class and making it harder for anybody to lose their job because their boss doesn't like their opinions. All of this stuff, right? This incoherent muddle that, when he's handed these billionaire-funded megaphones like Prager University or the Babylon Bee, right? Like these go out sometimes, not necessarily so much Babylon Bee, although, maybe, right? But certainly in the Prager case, these go out to literally millions of people and without challenge, right? Without anybody else being in the room to break down why none of it makes sense and to present a more compelling vision to anybody in that audience of millions who might be persuadable, which there always are people who are. There are always people who are somewhat curious about a message, but aren't totally sure what to think, etc. Right? So this is why I see value in doing stuff like this. So I'm probably, I think I'm going to need a couple days to detox from the Babylon Bee shit before I'm ready to subject myself to more of this. But I'm probably going to do one more stream along these lines before the debate on Sunday. I might do that. Thursday's the debate breakdown. Friday, I think I actually have plans. So I guess that would have to be Saturday. So if I do another one, it's going to be Saturday. It's funny. I actually have read Infinite Jest cover to cover. I know a lot of people claim that nobody ever does, but I actually think it's a good book. And it's a much faster read than you would think it was, if you're just judging by the number of pages of endnotes at the end or whatever. Yes, I am not going to be reading all of it on stream. That'd be a very long stream. I was actually thinking about that book earlier today, and how much I actually did enjoy it. Honestly recommended. I think it's actually a pretty good read. But in any case, but yes, please do like and subscribe. And if you live in Southern California, please do consider coming by on Sunday because, frankly, I want to do more stuff like this, right? I think that it's really important. Again, the fact that these guys have an audience of millions and nobody, normally they're never sort of put in a room where anybody's going to challenge their views and sort of look at the incoherence of some of these combinations of views and present their audience with something better. I think there's a lot of value to engaging with them. And I'd like to do a lot more of it. And frankly, it's just a lot more fun to do it in person than on a computer screen, right? So I'd like to do, more of these self-organized in-person debates in more places, right? Obviously, starting with LA, because this is where I live. And the more successful this is, the more of this stuff I'm going to be able to do. And I actually think it is going to be a lot of fun. If you've watched stuff like my debate with Charlie Kirk or with Gene Epstein, I think you have some idea of how that goes. And I really enjoyed those. And I really think I'm going to enjoy this. And so, yeah, please do consider coming out, right? Ticket link down there. Oh my God, yeah, good. This is also true, right? Now to students in Florida, right? The very definition of a captive audience, or I don't know, maybe it's. I think it's I think it's not going to be in like normal classrooms in Florida, but whatever. It's definitely getting some assistance in spreading from the state government, which is pretty funny. So yeah, I mean, these guys promote this stuff with the assistance of their billionaire funders, with the assistance of politicians like Ron DeSantis, who wants to give people like high school credit for PragerU videos. They're reaching this vast audience with all of this nonsense, and people pushing back and people exposing some of the contradictions in it, people showing how this agenda is totally contrary to the interests of the vast majority of ordinary Americans, is something that doesn't happen nearly enough, right? So there's value in that, and as I said, it's just much more fun to do it in person, right? It's like that was always like when I watched those like Christopher Hitchens debates with pastors and stuff. It's always, that's always what I thought. It's like, man, that looks like so much fun, right? Like, and so much more fun than doing it on a computer split screen to do the in-person events. So in any case, yes, Unbeliever Free Assange, I do dare to add to your reading list. You should honestly read Infinite Jest. It's I would not have read it all the way through if it wasn't if it was boring. I stopped lots of things midway through because they don't hold my attention. So yeah. Again, if you're in Southern California, please do consider coming out on Sunday. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. If you are not, then seriously, set something up with some right-wing figure who lives where you live, and I would absolutely love to come out and do this there. I mean, this is a thing I want to do more of. So on that note, we are going to call it a night for tonight. My apologies for inflicting that much Babylon Bee on people. All of our brains, as Mr. Rubin said, are going to be in recovery mode after that, although I don't know that it's because the ideas are so high level. But in any case, we are going to leave it off there for tonight. Going to be back tomorrow with Victor and Ethan for a debate breakdown. Not 100% sure with what yet. We're looking at, there's an Oxford Union debate from several years ago that has Norm Finkelstein in it on whether Israel's a rogue state. So that's one possibility. We're also looking at Vivek Ramaswamy's appearance on TYT. That's another one. So anyway, it'll probably be one of those two. Not 100% sure yet, but one way or the other, going to be back for a debate breakdown tomorrow. I will see you then. Left is best.